Have you ever been scrolling through your social media and you see a meme or a post or a video that has a really strange Bible verse in it? Usually it's done in a negative way, often to be derogatory towards Christianity. Or someone will take a verse and use that single verse and try to make a point. It's common, really common, and it's dangerous. We need to be very careful about reading a single Bible verse. Context is critically important when reading the Bible and when reading any Bible verse. There are parts of the Bible that are history, parts of the Bible that are poetry, parts that are prophecy, parts that are law, and so on. And each of those parts needs to be broken down into the language and the cultural understanding of the time. It's important to remember that chapters and verses that we see in our Bibles today, those weren't there in any of the original writing. The idea of a verse, which today can even be a partial sentence, without the context of the full and the original understanding, it would just make no sense. Imagine opening up a random book, and then you flip to a random page, and then you read half a sentence by itself. How would you make sense of what that sentence fragment means? It would have no context. You wouldn't know who wrote it, when they wrote it, why they wrote it, who they were writing to, and so on. You would have no ability to place it into the bigger picture of the book. What is the story of the entire book? The same thing happens to us when we read a Bible verse. This is why, at a bare minimum, we need to read the full paragraph that the verse is in, along with the paragraph that precedes the verse and the paragraph that comes after the verse. That's kind of the minimum. When people cherry pick a single verse and then they post it online in a negative way, you need to study and understand the bigger picture so that you can respond with knowledge and understanding. When people use a single verse to make you feel bad about Christianity, and let's be honest, there are some very strange single verses in the Bible, knowing the full context is critical. This also happens in the other direction. People will pick out a single verse and apply it out of context in a positive spin. I have a prior podcast episode that focuses specifically on Jeremiah 29:11. People often use that verse as proof that God only wants them to be prosperous and they'll never be harmed. The problem is that when you read that one verse in the full context of Jeremiah, you can read that that's not what the verse is stating. It has quite a different meaning. When we read the Bible, picking out single verses that say what we want them to say, that can sometimes be as damaging as someone who picks out a verse to mock Christianity. The Bible wasn't written to confirm our pre-existing bias. It wasn't written to validate the views and opinions that we think are true. It was written to transform us, to change us. And that requires us to read the Bible with care and reverence. What we need to do when we find a verse that's challenging to us is to read it in the full context, to understand who it was written to, when it was written, why it was written, and so on. And we're to test our understanding against the rest of the Bible. We're to look at the full story of the Bible and see if that understanding is validated throughout the book, not just that one single verse or fragment of a sentence. There will not be a point made in one part of Scripture and then the exact opposite point elsewhere in Scripture without any context or understanding. Those strange Bible verses, they must be read in full context of the Bible to make sense of them. Because there are definitely strange, weird, bizarre sounding verses in the Bible. That's true. And in those cases, you need to do your work. You need to study and figure out why that verse says what it says. So reading single verses, taking verses out of context, cherry-picking verses, and making verses fit into your desired worldview and your desired outcome, that can all be dangerous, and we have to be really careful when we're walking down that path. We need the full story. We need the big picture. We need to know these things in order to fully understand what it is that we're reading. And that takes time. The response to a meme is going to be longer than the meme itself every time. So when you see those memes online, when you're scrolling through your newsfeed, and you see Bible verses used to put down the Bible, that's when you need to remember how important it is to never read a Bible verse. And by the way, if you find this topic interesting, I recommend you look up the work of Gregory Kokel or Dan Kimball. They've both written a lot on these topics, written a lot on these ideas, and you'd find it worthwhile to read through what they have to say as well. And before you go, please subscribe to this show, rate it, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. 5 stars is, of course, the desired number of stars. Your ratings, your reviews, they really help other people find the show, so thank you for that. And head over to significantman.com and sign up for the free Intel email series. Every week, I write a short piece, sometimes a devotion, sometimes inspiration, something for you to think about as you go through the week. It's free, it's fast, so head over to significantman.com and sign up for Intel today. All right, enjoy the next show.